For most of its history, humanity believed the universe was empty, not because they lacked imagination, but because the stars never answered. They listened patiently. They sent signals into the dark. They built machines that could see back to the first moments of time itself. And the universe remained quiet. That silence shaped humanity in ways no other species could understand. Humans learned to live without reassurance, without guidance, without witnesses. They fought their own wars, solved their own disasters, and survived their own extinctions without anyone watching. They became a species accustomed to standing alone. So when the silence finally broke, humanity did not celebrate. They froze. It happened without warning. One moment the skies above Earth were clear, blue, and familiar. The next, space itself seemed to tear open. Thousands of shapes emerged from nothing. Vast, angular constructs of metal and light, eclipsing the sun as they slid into orbit with impossible precision. They did not announce themselves. They did not threaten. They simply arrived. Across the planet, people stopped mid-step. Traffic halted. Cities went quiet as shadows swept over continents. Entire oceans darkened beneath the mass of foreign hulls. Human sensors screamed. Satellites flooded command centers with data they couldn't fully process. Every nation saw the same thing at the same time. An armada, not a fleet sent to explore, a fleet sent to own. Within minutes, the world's governments activated every defense protocol ever written. Nuclear arsenals stood ready. Orbital platforms powered up. Fleets launched from Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies would practice efficiency. Humanity responded the only way it knew how. Together, the first engagement lasted 18 minutes. Human ships were fast. They were powerful by any human standard. Their weapons could fracture asteroids, punch through planetary shields, burn cities from orbit if needed. None of it mattered. Alien shields absorbed human fire as if it were rain. Precision beams cut through holes with surgical indifference. Entire squadrons vanished in flashes of silent light. Human commanders adapted instantly. New formations, desperate maneuvers, suicide runs meant to overwhelm shields through sheer mass. Nothing worked. By the time the last surviving human vessels retreated, more than 80% of humanity's spaceborne military was gone. On the flagship above Earth, the conquerors watched without emotion. They had done this before. For them, this was not war. It was procedure. Bombardment began at dusk. Not indiscriminate destruction, measured annihilation. Military bases, command centers, launch facilities, communication hubs. Each target erased with clinical efficiency. By morning, Earth's organized defense was effectively finished. Still, humanity did not surrender. They fought in the ruins of cities, in underground tunnels, in places no invading army ever wanted to go. They improvised weapons. They laid traps. They resisted even when resistance was pointless. The invaders noted it with mild curiosity. Most species broke quickly once defeat became obvious. Humans did not. They resisted longer than logic suggested, longer than survival required. Interesting, some commanders observed, but not concerning. On the 11th day, Earth's governments requested a ceasefire. The surrender was formal, quiet, exhausted. Human leaders stood beneath the shadow of alien projections, listening as terms were delivered without cruelty and without mercy. Humanity would live. Humanity would work. Humanity would obey. The galaxy would move on. And to the invaders, it appeared complete. The war was over. The planet was conquered. The species was broken. That was a conclusion written into reports and archives across the empire. What they failed to understand, what the silence of the universe had already taught humanity, was that stillness did not mean absence. It meant patience. And patience, when misunderstood, is the most dangerous thing of all. The stars went quiet again, and everyone assumed that meant humanity was finished. Occupation did not arrive with brutality. That surprised everyone. After surrender, the alien armada did not continue its bombardment. Cities were not erased at random. Populations were not herded into camps. Instead, administrators descended. Systems were installed. Schedules were issued. Life What remained of it was allowed to continue. Humanity was not crushed. It was managed. Alien officials took control of governments with unsettling efficiency. Existing human institutions were not dismantled. They were absorbed. Ministries kept their buildings. Leaders kept their titles. They simply answered to someone else now. Factories reopened within weeks. Humans returned to work under new quotas, producing materials for distant worlds they would never see. Farms were reorganized. Supply chains rerouted. Every resource Earth possessed was carefully cataloged and assigned a value. The conquerors were thorough and polite. Alien soldiers patrolled the streets of major cities, but rarely interfered. They did not shout. They did not threaten. They observed. Their presence was constant and unmistakable, but restrained. To many humans, this was worse than open cruelty. There was no single moment to rebel against, no dramatic villain to fight, just an endless, quiet pressure that reminded humanity every second of the day who truly owned the world now. Surveillance became absolute. Every communication passed through alien filters. Every shipment was logged. Every gathering larger than a handful of people was flagged and reviewed. The technology was elegant and terrifying in its completeness. Resistance groups tried to form. They did not last. Cells were identified before they ever acted. Leaders vanished overnight. Others died in accidents or were quietly removed from the system. No public executions. No spectacle. Just silence. Within months, organized resistance disappeared entirely. To the Empire, this was proof of success. Human compliance rates climbed steadily. Production targets were exceeded. Civil unrest dropped to statistically insignificant levels. Reports described humanity as adaptive and cooperative, a model conquest. Within a year, most alien warships departed the system, reassigned to more urgent campaigns elsewhere. Only a minimal force remained, enough to maintain order, not enough to fight a war. There was no need. The humans had learned their place, or so it appeared, because beneath the perfect obedience, something subtle was happening. Humans stopped protesting, stopped shouting, stopped begging. They worked, they bowed, they followed instructions precisely, too precisely. Alien administrators noted it as cultural resignation, a predictable phase in post-conquest integration. Most species went through it eventually. Grief gave way to routine to acceptance. No one questioned it. No one noticed how humans watched instead of spoke, how they memorized patrol patterns without appearing to look, how they learned alien systems by repairing them, how they adapted to new rules with unsettling speed. Maintenance workers moved freely through restricted areas. Logistics staff handled manifests and supply flows. Technicians interfaced with alien networks daily. They were invisible, and invisibility, for a species that had once hunted by endurance rather than strength, was a familiar advantage. An alien governor, overseeing the sector, reviewed the annual reports with satisfaction. Human productivity had stabilized. Surveillance indicated no significant resistance activity. Cultural assimilation programs were working ahead of schedule. Within a generation, the reports predicted, humans will no longer remember life before the Empire. The governor approved a further reduction in security presence. Why waste resources guarding a defeated species? Somewhere deep beneath the surface of that calm, a single human diplomat continued her ceremonial duties. She attended meetings no one cared about, delivered reports no one read, smiled at officials who dismissed her existence entirely. She listened, she remembered, and while the Empire congratulated itself on another flawless victory, humanity did what it had always done best when faced with something stronger than itself. It endured, quietly, waiting. At first, nothing was wrong. That was the most dangerous part. The Empire's reports remained flawless. Production quotas were met. Human workers arrived on time, performed their tasks efficiently, and returned home without incident. Surveillance systems showed clean data streams, predictable patterns, orderly compliance. If something had been wrong, alarms would have sounded. They did not. The first anomaly was dismissed as routine error. A supply convoy bound for an outer colony arrived one day late. The delay was logged, explained away as a minor navigation recalibration. These things happened across a galaxy-spanning empire. No one lost sleep over it. Then another shipment arrived underweight. A few tons missing from a cargo manifest that measured materials by the millions. The discrepancy was corrected in the system and blamed on a clerical oversight. A human logistics clerk was quietly reprimanded. Nothing more. Small things followed. A sensor array failed for 11 seconds before restoring itself. A maintenance drone reported a diagnostic loop that resolved without intervention. A patrol ship near the edge of the system went dark and was later written off as a mechanical failure. Individually, each event was meaningless. Together, they formed a pattern no one bothered to see. Alien administrators were trained to identify threats, riots, uprisings, weapons development, unauthorized communications. They were not trained to suspect patience. And patience was everywhere. Human technicians repaired alien machinery with meticulous care, learning its weaknesses while pretending not to understand its purpose. Human accountants processed resource flows, shaving fractions of material into places no audit ever reached. Human laborers moved scrap and waste that was never fully tracked, never fully counted. Grams at a time. Pieces so small they vanished into statistical noise. The Empire's surveillance was powerful, but it was designed to detect action. Humans were doing something else entirely. By the third year, ships began disappearing. Not fleets, not warships. Single patrol vessels on routine assignments. The official explanation was consistent. Navigation error, micrometeor impact, system malfunction. Space was dangerous. Losses were expected. Still, an investigator was assigned. Not because anyone was worried, but because procedure demanded it. He was methodical, experienced. He reviewed trajectories, crew histories, maintenance logs. He found nothing connecting the vanished ships. Different crews, different routes, different systems. And yet, when he overlaid the disappearances on a star map, something unsettled him. They formed a loose arc. Not a line, a boundary. He hesitated before submitting that observation. It sounded speculative, pattern-seeking, unscientific. He removed the note from his report. Better not to embarrass himself. Then officials began to die. Quietly, an administrator collapsed in his quarters. Natural causes. A second died weeks later. Then a surveillance officer. Then a tax overseer. All unrelated. All medically explainable. Except for one detail. Every body wore the same expression. Fear. Not pain. Not struggle. Recognition. The investigator reopened his case files. He searched deeper into waste logs, repair schedules, archive surveillance frames no one reviewed anymore. That was when he noticed something small. A crate, carried by a human worker years earlier. Its serial number did not exist. He pulled more records, found more crates, minor discrepancies, discarded materials listed as destroyed but never verified, shipments that vanished inside legitimate transfers. When he ran the numbers, his breath caught. Enough material was missing to build something substantial, something hidden. He brought his findings to the sector governor. The response was immediate and dismissive. "You are imagining complexity where none exists," the governor said. "Humans are compliant. Their resistance collapsed years ago. You are seeing ghosts." Surveillance was increased anyway, if only to satisfy protocol. It revealed nothing. Humans continued their routines. No secret meetings. No unusual communications. No deviation from expected behavior. And yet, the anomalies continued. Signals flickered through deep space. Brief, encrypted bursts that vanished before they could be traced. Patrol ships failed to report. Materials continued to disappear in quantities too small to justify investigation. Too consistent to ignore. The investigator began to sleep poorly. The governor began to feel watched. Neither of them understood what was happening. They only sensed that something vast was moving beneath the surface of perfect obedience. And somewhere in the silence between stars, humanity was no longer just waiting. It was finishing something. Quietly, patiently, out of sight. The governor had denied the request every time it arrived. 5 years of polite refusals. 5 years of ignoring the ceremonial messages from the human cultural liaison. An obsolete position maintained only to preserve the illusion of diplomacy. There was nothing a defeated species had left to say. Until the night the governor stopped sleeping. He stood alone in his office, staring out through transparent alloy at the blue curve of Earth below. The reports on his console were perfect. Too perfect. Production was stable. Surveillance showed nothing unusual. Human compliance remained absolute, and yet the feeling remained. A pressure behind his thoughts. A sense of movement where nothing should be moving. When the request arrived again, marked urgent, he surprised even himself. Grant the audience. The human arrived without escort. She was old by human standards, her movements slow, her posture carefully submissive. She kept her eyes lowered, hands folded in the traditional gesture of deference. Perfect obedience. The governor did not offer her a seat. "You asked to speak," he said. "Be brief." The human raised her eyes. They were calm, not defiant, not fearful, knowing. "I came to offer a warning," she said. The governor felt irritation spike through him. "A warning from what?" "Your species has nothing left to threaten us with." "That is what concerns me," she replied gently. He turned fully toward her. "Explain." "When your empire studies a species," she said, "you do not begin with weapons. You begin with psychology." The governor's antennae twitched. "You catalog traits, behavioral patterns, instincts shaped by evolution. You decide which species will submit easily and which require special protocols." She paused. "You did that to us." The governor's expression hardened. "You have read restricted material." "We read everything," she said. Carefully, she took a slow step closer. The guards tensed but did not move. "Your scholars identified something in humans they had rarely seen before," she continued. "A survival strategy older than civilization. Persistence without limit." The governor felt a chill creep into his core. "You called it many things. Endurance hunting, attrition psychology, predatory patience." He knew the file. Every senior administrator did. "You created a single rule to govern all interactions with humanity," she said softly. "A rule designed to prevent disaster." The governor spoke before he could stop himself. "Rule number 1. The human smiled, not with triumph, but with sadness. Never let humans believe they have nothing left to lose." Silence filled the chamber. "You wrote that rule," she continued, "because you understood something fundamental. A human with hope can be controlled. A human with fear can be broken. But a human who has lost everything." She leaned closer. "Does not stop." The governor felt anger rise. "We broke your armies. We destroyed your cities. We watched you surrender." "You watched us kneel," she corrected. "You never watched us give up." He took a step back without realizing it. "This is treason," he said. "I could have you executed." "You could," she agreed calmly. "And it would change nothing." Alarms did not sound. Nothing exploded. The station remained calm and intact. That frightened him more than any uprising. "You have noticed the anomalies," she said. "The missing materials, the vanished ships, the unexplained deaths. You are intelligent enough to see the shape forming, even if you do not yet understand it." "What are you planning?" he demanded. She shook her head. "I am not a planner. I am a reminder." She straightened, and in that moment the posture of defeat vanished entirely. "You stopped watching," she said. "You declared victory too early. You assumed silence meant submission." Her voice dropped. "Silence is how humans hunt." The governor's pulse raced. "If this is a threat—" "It is not a threat," she interrupted. "It is the courtesy your empire denied us." She stepped back, lowering her gaze once more. "You forgot rule number 1, she said. "And forgetting it always ends the same way." She turned and walked out. The guards looked to the governor for orders. He gave none. That night, surveillance was doubled. Patrols were increased. Communications were filtered again and again. They found nothing. Humanity remained perfectly obedient. And for the first time since the conquest began, the governor felt something he had never associated with a defeated species. Fear, because rules are not written without reason. And rule number one existed because somewhere in the Empire's past, someone had made the same mistake and paid for it. The first alarm did not come from Earth. It came from the edge of the system, a listening post, old, lightly crewed, considered irrelevant. Stopped transmitting without warning. No distress call. No spike in energy readings. It simply vanished from a network, as if it had never existed. The governor was notified 3 minutes later. He stared at the report longer than necessary. Listening posts failed sometimes. Equipment aged. Power grids collapsed. A routine maintenance ticket would explain it. Then a second post went dark. Then a third. All on different vectors. All within seconds of each other. Activate full sensor sweep, the governor ordered. I want every anomaly logged. The response came back almost immediately. Nothing detected. No enemy signatures. No weapon discharges. No ships entering or exiting known space lanes. The system was quiet. Too quiet. Then the stars began to change. At first, it looked like sensor noise. Tiny distortions near asteroid clusters. Gravitational ripples inside gas giant shadows. Momentary flickers behind moons that should have been empty. Then something emerged. Not from hyperspace. Not from known transit corridors. They appeared where nothing should be able to exist. Black shapes unfolded from darkness like thoughts becoming solid, angular, silent, precise. Hundreds of them, then thousands, materializing across the system in perfect coordination. Human ships. The governor felt his blood turn cold. How? He whispered. We would have seen them. You watched what they wanted you to watch. Defense platforms opened fire automatically. The shots missed, not because the ships were fast, but because they were never where they appeared to be. Human vessels slid through space with unsettling smoothness, repositioning between sensor ticks, moving as if they already knew where the Empire's weapons would aim. Platforms died one by one, not in explosion, but in quiet collapses. Systems shutting down, power failing, control cores erased as if surgically removed from existence. Communications flooded the command center. Outer grid offline. Patrol group lost. Command, we can't lock targets. The governor turned to the main tactical display. Red markers spread across the system, like a disease. What is this? He demanded. Where did they come from? No one answered. Then every screen in the chamber flickered. Every frequency. Every channel. The same image appeared everywhere. A human woman. Middle-aged. Calm. No uniform. No insignia. She looked like a civilian. My name is Admiral Sarah Chun, she said evenly. I am speaking on behalf of humanity. The governor felt something break inside him. You invaded our world, she continued. You destroyed our cities. You enslaved our people. You believed that because we stopped resisting, we had accepted defeat. Behind her, through a window, ships moved, thousands of them, forming patterns no Empire fleet had ever attempted. For 5 years, she said, we obeyed. Human ships struck again. Entire squadrons vanished from the tactical map. For 5 years, we learned. A defense ring collapsed. For 5 years, you watched our silence and called it surrender. The governor shouted, trace the signal, jam it, do something. Nothing worked. This is not a rebellion, Admiral Chin said. This is not a negotiation. This is a result of forgetting rule number 1. Her eyes hardened. You took everything from us. Stations began exploding now, violent, unmistakable destruction ripping through orbital infrastructure. You gave us nothing left to lose. Human ships surged forward, and you mistook patience for weakness. The transmission cut. The system burned. Empire fleets scrambled, but every move was anticipated. Every countermeasure failed. Human ships appeared behind formations before orders were even issued. They moved like predators who had studied their prey for years. Because they had. The governor's station shook violently. Reports screamed in from across the sector. Other systems were under attack. Simultaneously. Perfectly timed. This wasn't chaos. It was choreography. The governor remembered the diplomat's words. Silence is how humans hunt. As emergency lighting flooded the chamber, he finally understood. Humanity had never been broken. It had been waiting. And now, the waiting was over. The Empire did not fall in a single night. Empires never do. They unravel, system by system, supply line by supply line, certainty by certainty. What happened in the first hours was not conquest. It was removal. Human fleets did not charge blindly into enemy space. They cut, they isolated, they dismantled. Communication hubs vanished. Logistics routes collapsed. Command structures dissolved into confusion. Fleets sent to reinforce one sector arrived to find nothing left to defend. Everywhere the same pattern emerged. Human ships struck, then withdrew, returned from impossible angles. Attacked weaknesses no one else had ever noticed. The Empire's greatest strength, its scale, became its greatest liability. Because scale assumes time, humanity allowed none. In the days that followed, governors issued contradictory orders. Admirals demanded reinforcements that never arrived. Entire sectors went dark, not in flames, but in silence. Systems simply ceasing to exist as functioning parts of the Empire. And still, humanity did not declare victory. There were no speeches, no proclamations, no demand for surrender. Just pressure, relentless, unyielding, patient, on the occupied world. The governor was taken alive, not executed, not humiliated, arrested. Human soldiers entered the chamber without ceremony. Their weapons were powered, but not raised. They did not hate him. They did not need to. Justice, not revenge. The human diplomat stood nearby as the restraints were applied. "You will be tried," she said calmly, "for what you did to our people. Not as an enemy, but as a criminal." The governor did not resist. He had finally understood. Elsewhere in the galaxy, the message spread faster than fear. Species that had watched humanity's defeat years earlier now watched the aftermath in disbelief. They had expected annihilation, genocide, the same brutality the Empire had inflicted on them. It did not come. Human fleets withdrew once objectives were met. Occupied worlds were not claimed. They were freed. Administrators were removed. Local governments restored. Reconstruction supplies followed within days. The pattern was unmistakable. Humanity did not want territory. It wanted the threat gone. In the Empire's core worlds, panic turned into resignation. Ancient rulers remembered old doctrines buried deep in archives, protocols written by ancestors who had once studied humanity carefully. Rule number 1. Never let humans believe they have nothing left to lose. They remembered too late. Years passed. The Empire collapsed into history, not through fire, but through irrelevance. Its fleets dismantled, its systems fragmented. Its name became a warning whispered in diplomatic halls. Humanity returned to silence, not hiding, not pretending, simply present, stronger, quieter, and more careful than before. The fleets vanished back into places no one could detect. The soldiers went home. The diplomats resumed their work. The galaxy adjusted. Every species learned the same lesson, though none wrote it down publicly. Do not corner humans. Do not strip them of hope. Do not mistake patience for surrender. Because humanity does not rage. It waits. And when it moves, it does not conquer. It ends things. The stars grew quiet once more. This time, everyone understood what that silence meant, and no one was eager to break it again.